I love the Starlink Mini. It's my favorite Starlink dish. It's so versatile, packs such a huge punch for such a small size. But it's interesting because one of its biggest advantages is also one of its biggest weaknesses, in my opinion. So the Mini is able to be so compact and power efficient because it has an integrated Wi-Fi router inside here. And that's great if you're just setting it up, temporarily right next to your campsite or something. Just plug it into power with a single cable and you could have Wi-Fi within a few minutes. But what if you're in a different situation? I had a comment the other day from a subscriber who said they've got an Airstream travel trailer, and if you know anything about Airstreams, they have this aluminum, this metal shell that they're built out of, and that basically blocks all the wireless signals. So they're not able to get a good Wi-Fi signal from their Starlink Mini because it's obviously outside because the antenna needs a clear view of the sky. Now, one solution to that, so you can use an external router and hook it up to the back of the Starlink Mini using this Ethernet port. So that's a fairly simple process, but you notice I'm running two cables now. Why am I running two cables? Well, the Starlink Mini doesn't support power over Ethernet, or PoE. If you're wanting to make an Ethernet connection to use a third-party router or a Starlink router that's external to the Mini's internal router, then you need to run two cables, the DC power cable and then an Ethernet cable as well. Now, that's kind of a minor thing, I realize. Running two cables is not that huge of a deal. Starlink sells this one. This is their I think it's like 15 meters or about 50 feet. It's the Mini Ethernet cable. It's got the special Mini plug on one side, and then you just run it, to your external router. And that's not too big of a deal. I mean, running two cables, what's the issue, right? Well, a lot of people don't want to do that. They'd rather have a single cable solution than running, dealing with two cables. So I think I found a solution to kind of get rid of this whole thing. So this is a product that I found on Amazon. I think it's from a company called EDUP, something like that. It's called the Mini 12 volt splitter / injector. I don't know what the exact name is, but essentially what it is a mini PoE injector. It turns your Mini's dual cable setup, if you're wanting to connect it with Ethernet, into a single cable setup using this PoE injector component and then also this PoE splitter. So if you notice on this side, it has the two plugs that go into your Starlink Mini, and then it combines the two into, this is just an Ethernet, RJ45 connector with a waterproof cap. You run any kind of Ethernet cable back to this thing. This is like your power supply, where you would have inside, next to your external router, connect it to this port, provide power to it. It's also got some additional features which we'll go into here in a bit. But this is a solution that allows you to run a single Ethernet cable from your Starlink Mini dish, which is outside, back inside to an external router. And it could be something like this. This is the new Router Mini from Starlink. And this is what I'm going to be using in today's demonstration and review of this EDUP Starlink Mini PoE injector. Before we get too far into this review and demonstration, I did want to show you the problem that I'm solving by using an external router. So you can see the Starlink Mini over there. It's probably about 50 feet away or so. And I've got the Starlink app here. Let's open it up. Let's run a speed test, and I'm going to do the iPhone to router. So I'm just going to test the speed that I can get from my phone to the Mini's internal router. If I click start, that's not even internet speed. This is supposed to be just the theoretical link speed between the phone and the router over there, and that is absolutely pathetic. 45 megabits per second on the downstream, and a little bit better on the upload, 50, 60, whatever. And what that basically means, because the Wi-Fi signal is so weak, even at this distance, what that means is if I run the internet speed test, it's going to be similarly limited because my Wi-Fi signal is limiting my performance down to just 50 megabits per second, which is not at all where the Starlink Mini should be. If I go back into the run the speed test on the Starlink antenna itself, you can see I'm getting 240, 250, 260, 270, 265, it's still going, around 270 megabits per second. So I am extremely limited I'm getting 1/5 of the performance that I should be, and that is solely due to the weak Wi-Fi router inside the Starlink Mini. And I'm outside in a clear space. Imagine if you're inside your camper, inside your home, inside your RV. Really, if you're any distance away from the Mini, it's kind of worthless as a Wi-Fi router. So that's why I recommend using an external router, and that's why we're doing this PoE injector, so that we could get a solid Ethernet signal through one cable, power and data on one cable, and use a proper router at the location that we're actually going to be using our devices. So this mini PoE injector, I think it was around $150 or $160 on Amazon. I will leave a link in the description below if you want to check it out. But what you need with it, in addition to this PoE injector, obviously, you need an external router. I'm using the $40 router mini. Go check out my review I just posted if you want to learn more about this thing. You also need some Ethernet cable. So don't make the mistake that I did. You'll see in a moment what I'm talking about with my difficulties with this waterproof cap. But EDUP says on their Amazon listing that you can't use a shielded cable. You can't use the Starlink cable, you know, with the little waterproof seals. It really just has to be an Ethernet cable, any kind of Ethernet cable, probably Cat 6 or above, that has a regular RJ45 on it. It can't be shielded. You'll see why that is in a moment. You also need a way to power your router mini or whatever router you're going to be using. The nice thing about this EDUP PoE injector is that it has a couple of USB ports. It has a 5-volt USB-C and then a 12-volt USB-A port that can power a router. So if you had like one of those GLI net travel routers, that would be perfect plugged into this 5-volt USB-C. That way you wouldn't have to run another power run from your RV or van circuit or whatever. I am actually, so the router mini, you'll see in a second, it has a 9-volt input, but I've found that it actually does work on this 5-volt. So I bought this this cable to USB-C to this DC plug that fits into the router mini. I'm going to be running the router mini off of this USB-C port here, even though it's only 5 volts. And last but not least, you'll need a way to power this thing up. So natively, this accepts a DC input of 9 to 36 volts. It has, you know, your positive, negative, and ground terminal here. So this is perfect if you're installing this in a van or RV where you have DC power already. But what if you're wanting to use this on your home? Like if you need to run the Starlink Mini up to your roof and you just want a single cable? Well, that's what I'm doing, or that's what I'm planning on doing. So I've got kind of a modification that you can do to get around that. So this is the Mini's power adapter. This is the one that it comes with. It outputs 30 volts, so that's perfectly compatible with this. You can plug this into a wall. This cable, by the way, disconnects. This is just the 50-foot cable that comes with the Mini and the kit. And what I'm going to do is cut this to about 12 feet or so, and then just splice the two cables into the positive and negative here. So let me do that here real quick for you. So interestingly, with the Starlink Mini DC cable, there's not two insulated conductors. There's one insulated positive conductor, and then the negative is just kind of wrapped around the positive conductor in the cable. So you might be surprised you cut this open and find that's the way it was, but you can still do what I'm doing and just splice this in there. I'm just going to strip the positive connector, and we should be set. So you might want to put some spade connectors on here, something like that. I'm not going to worry about it for this test. I'm just going to put the positive into the positive, screw it down, and then put the negative to the negative. Again, not really too worried about making this super clean or anything, because I'm just doing this for a testing and review demonstration. But there we go. That's all there is to it. So now I have, let me coil this up just so you can see. So now I have about 12 feet or so of cable. So I've got my AC wall plug. This little adapter turns the AC power into 30 volts DC, runs into my PoE splitter, and now I have something that I can install indoors. Okay, so that's our power input. Let's talk about the Ethernet cable that you'll run to the Starlink Mini dish that carries your power and data. So this is probably the most annoying thing that I've found so far about this mini PoE injector. The issue comes from this little waterproof cap. So what you're supposed to do is connect the one end of your Ethernet cable to the PoE port, and then you run your other end to your antenna and connect it to this little splitter thing here. And now it has a standard, RJ45 port on the end of it, but you're supposed to be able to use this little water sealing cap on it. And the way that works is you introduce this little cap on first. That fits over no problem. Actually, I take that back. It doesn't fit over no problem. You can see what I've had to do here, and I'm going to end up breaking this again. You can see what I've had to do here if you take a look at both ends side by side. So this is the end that I started with. It has this little plastic cable jacket thing, and then I had to try to trim it down as thin as I possibly could to get rid of that to be able to fit through this cap. So I got it to fit through this one just fine. And then when I got to this cap, I had to actually file this down even more. So I didn't notice this when I bought it, but on the Amazon product listing, they have a photo that shows you that you're not supposed to use like shielded cable or any cable with this type of extra, cable jacket on the cable connector itself. So just be warned. I did learn from that after I looked at their product listing again that you don't actually have to use shielded Ethernet cable. You can just use any kind of Cat6 Ethernet cable, and they prefer ones without any of the extra jacket thing. So, but after I trim that down, now it kind of slides on there. There we go. So you also need this little water seal thing. This goes in the cap, so you just put it on the cable like so. And now you have the ability to plug this in like that. And then you put this on first. It just connects like that. And then you can put this little rubber thing inside the little, I don't even know what you call those, little grippy things. And then once that's in there, you can tighten it down finally with the final cap. And it doesn't have to be super tight. You just want the rubber seal to be completely seated around the cable. That prevents any rain or moisture from penetrating in here and kind of messing with this power connection. So there you go. That's your cable. This is like 100 feet of like outdoor rated shielded Cat6 cable that I had laying around. EDUP says you're not even supposed to use the Starlink cable, so you might have to purchase another cable at whatever length that you want. So this outputs 48 volts on the PoE, so you could probably use cables up to around 150 feet long to power your Starlink Mini. So now that our splitter's installed, we can mount our Mini out in the yard again, and I'm going to run the cable back to here. And so to finish the install out here, we just need to plug in the two plugs from our splitter. We've got the power and obviously the data as well. Make those connections. We can put this back on my little stand here. And let's go back to the router. Okay, back at our router and power supply, the other end of your Starlink cable goes into the PoE port on the PoE injector. Now we're ready to connect the actual router itself. So I probably forgot to mention this earlier, but you will need an Ethernet cable for that. It doesn't have to be anything special, just any kind of Ethernet cable. You want to plug it into the leftmost. This is the WAN port on the back of the router Mini. And then the other end of the Ethernet cable goes into the LAN port on your PoE injector, like so. And now we just have to deal with power for our router Mini. And like I'd mentioned, I've got a USB-C cable that I'm using for it. And I'm going to be using the 5-volt output on the EDUP PoE injector. I tested this before. It does power it on and the network starts up and everything. We're going to find out in a second though whether we get full network speeds or not off of that 5-volt input, because the router Mini is only rated for an input of 9 volts. So let's just see what happens here. So we've got all of our connections, our routers connected, our power for the routers connected. Now all we have to do is plug in our power supply. And I've got it on a little watt meter here so that I could tell you how much power this uses. But let's let that boot up and then I'll check back with you. Okay, it's been a few minutes. I've let my Starlink Mini boot up. Everything appears to be normal. You've got the world's, I don't know if you can see, that camera picks that up. This is the brightest blue LED that I've ever seen in my life. This thing is blinding. Just fair warning there, if you're going to be installing this like on out in the open, you know, this light is going to be absolutely disturbing at night. This thing is so bright. I don't know why they had to make it so bright. But this is the power indicator. Everything's booted up here and working. The router Mini has a little power LED that is working fine. And I've got a connection status of online in the app. And you can see that I'm connected now to my Starlink Mini. I have it right now. I don't have it, the Mini in bypass mode or anything. This is just wired mesh. So if I go into the network here, you can see that it's showing that we have one mesh node. This is the wired mesh connection because we're connected over Ethernet. And then the router, the Mini's router, internal router, is still operating. So this is kind of what I recommend if you're using a Starlink router to hook up externally, because that way your Starlink Mini router still operates and it provides Wi-Fi like outside if you have it on top of your van or RV or something. So now let's see what the result is. Let's run a speed test. We're right next to the router. Let's pretend like I'm in my RV or something where I'm actually going to be using my devices next to where my router's installed. Let's go to speed test and we're going to go to advanced, and we're going to first do the iPhone to router. So we're going to test the connection here. Remember before with the integrated router in the Mini, when we were standing about 50 feet away, we had like 50 megabits per second, 50 or 60. And now we have, you know, basically full speeds here, 750 megabits per second. That's the link over Wi-Fi. Really good stuff there. We can stop that. Let's go to internet. As a result of that, we have an improved Wi-Fi connection. Now we're going to get full speeds out of the full internet speeds out of the Mini dish. So 130, 140. And again, that's like 3 or 4 times what we were getting when we were far away from the router. Let me just run another one. This one, yeah, about the same, 130, 140. So it doesn't appear that we're limited at all as far as the running the router Mini off of 5 volts off of USB-C. So that's interesting. That might be a tip for you if you want to run it the same way I did. It's just nice to do it this way because I only need one power input. So since this PoE injector is supplying power for the router also, I could just, you know, if I was putting this in a van, I could just mount these two next to each other, have a single power input, have my Starlink cable, and then that's it. That's a pretty simple and nice clean solution. Let's check power consumption because I think that's pretty interesting as well. So I've got 35 or 36 watts being used right now by this system total. And that sounds about right because the Mini itself and the integrated router in the Mini uses anywhere from 20 to 30 watts that I've noticed on average. But I've got extra equipment hooked up here. So I've got the router Mini, which uses, you know, 4 or 5 watts. And then I've got this PoE injector, which has a DC step-up converter, which has some losses involved with it as well. So there's a little bit of extra wattage being used in that process. So overall, not a bad setup here. We've got an extra router, we've got a step-up converter. All that is using, you know, a little over 30 watts. So there you have it. That's one way that you could run a single cable to your Starlink Mini if you're interested in using an external router plugged into Ethernet. This simplifies the setup a whole lot. I think as far as this unit goes itself, a lot of these PoE injectors, especially the one off of Amazon, they can be kind of hit or miss. And this one worked for me in my demonstration and some of the testing that I've been doing with it. But your mileage definitely may vary. I did check the reviews on this one in particular, and it has pretty good reviews. Nobody had mentioned, though, problems with that, the waterproof cap and how your cable sizing really affects it. If you have a cable that looks like this, you're going to have to really trim off some of the stuff to get that to fit in there. I think the other issue that I noted was, you know, that blue light. That's a really minor thing. That's not a problem. And then I think also you're going to have to keep this in an area with plenty of good ventilation. You don't want to shove a lot of stuff on top of this. It has some vents here to cool off the components because this is stepping up DC voltage from, you know, it has an input range of 9 to 36. So it's going to be stepping that up to 48 volts. So that produces some heat as well. So Beyond that, you do have some screw holes, so that'll be nice to be able to permanently install it like inside an RV cabinet or something. You could even use the router mini alongside of it because this has a wall mount as well. Pretty cool setup. If you have any questions or comments or other recommendations, if you've done this kind of conversion yourself for your Starlink Mini, let me know in the comments below. You can ask any questions down there as well. Thank you for watching. Always appreciate you watching and supporting the channel. See you in the next video.